The evening air hung thick with pine and tension when I first realized the depths of Karen's arrogance. She marched down the creaking dock toward my rustic cabin, clipboard fluttering in her hand like a villain's cape, her steely eyes fixed on the brass keys swinging from my belt. Without warning, she lunged forward, jabbing a finger at the weathered wood siding as if claiming ownership of every knot and groove. My breath caught when her chubby fist shot out, yanking the keys free in a violent snatch. The cold metal slipped from my grip as she clutched them triumphantly and let out a harsh, triumphant cackle that echoed across the silent lake. Neighbors who'd gathered for a sunset paddle froze in horror. Karen, the self-appointed keeper of bylaws, had crossed a line she'd sworn never to approach. It started as a petty dispute, a slight misalignment in the deed, an outdated permit buried in township filings, and Karen's relentless insistence that I'd violated some obscure regulation. Every letter she wrote dripped with self-righteous indignation, every threat of fines more absurd than the last. When I caught wind of her secret plan to claim my cabin keys as evidence, I thought she was bluffing. But that night, under a sky bruised with twilight, she proved otherwise. The moment she held those keys aloft, her expression twisted with smug satisfaction, I felt something shift inside me. His was no longer a battle over property lines. It was a righteous war for dignity and truth. Behind her, the wooden board with its handwritten warning, keys stolen, fate sealed, swayed gently on a rope hook, as if even the weathered pine had conspired to reveal her duplicity. I lunged to grab the board, intending to smash her little prop, but she spun away, shoving me with a force that knocked me back against the dock rail. Heart pounding, I recovered and stared at her flabby silhouette outlined by the setting sun. In that charged moment, I realized Karen had underestimated me. I might not master bureaucratic jargon, but I knew enough to flip the script. Within 24 hours, I had uncovered the town clerk's files, handwritten affidavits, mismatched signatures, carbon copies that proved my permits were in perfect order. Armed with irrefutable evidence, I confronted Karen at the HOA meeting, her swollen cheeks pulsing with indignation. As I laid out the documents on the long oak table, her smug smile faltered. The entire board watched in stunned silence while I methodically dismantled her accusation point by point, exposing forged dates and misplaced receipts. Midway through my presentation, an unexpected ally emerged. Mrs. Harper, the HOA treasurer, who admitted she'd been coerced into signing off on Karen's bogus claim. The room crackled with disbelief as Harper's confession struck like a thunderbolt. Karen's carefully constructed facade crumbled. In the climactic showdown, Karen's face turned a shade so red it rivaled the firelight dancing on the lake's surface. She stuttered an apology, more to interrupt than to atone, but no one believed her. I retrieved my keys from her trembling hand, the brass glinting under the fluorescent glare of the meeting room. As I triumphantly returned them to my belt, the HOA president announced that an external review of Karen's conduct would be conducted immediately. The word "terminated" hovered in the air like a verdict. Hours later, a terse email landed in my inbox. Effective immediately, your position is abolished. Thank you for your service. Karen's empire of intimidation lay in ruins. In the aftermath, I returned to my cabin under a sky peppered with stars brighter than any dispute over bylaws. The wooden board now mine leaned against the porch, its simple inscription, a powerful testament to truth's triumph over tyranny. The air felt sweeter, the stillness of the lake deeper, and each ripple seemed to whisper that justice, once set in motion, cannot be stopped. I raised a glass of iced tea to the night, acknowledging that this victory was as much about standing up to petty cruelty as it was about protecting my own rights. The morning sunlight filtered through pine needles as I stepped onto the cabin's creaking porch, the board with its defiant message leaning proudly against the railing. The lake stretched beyond like a glass mirror, untroubled now that Karen's shadow had been banished. In those first hours after her ouster, neighbors emerged from their boats and campsites with cautious smiles, their eyes bright with gratitude and relief. Mrs. Harper joined me by the fire pit, her weary shoulders lighter without the weight of Karen's coercion. She took a slow breath, as if exhaling a year's worth of fear, and said, "You did more than defend your property, you reminded everyone what fairness looks like." Her words warmed me more than the embers. I nodded, resisting the urge to gloat, knowing that true victory lay in community restored, not in crushing an adversary. Over the next week, whispers of admiration turned into open praise. A group gathered on a sunny afternoon to replace the stolen cabin keys with a handcrafted key rack, each key polished and inscribed with the owner's name. Laughter echoed as we swapped stories of Karen's petty tyranny, her midnight threats of towing boats, her self-satisfied memos demanding lawn inspections at dawn. Each confession knit us closer, forging solidarity from shared indignation. I carved a small plaque that read "Rights Defended Here" and hung it above my door, a humble reminder that vigilance against abuse is a responsibility we all share. Yet, amid the celebration, I found myself restless. Karen's downfall had been swift, but the scars of her reign lingered. The HOA board, now under temporary oversight, invited me to a reconciliation meeting. I entered the community hall wary, but determined to ensure such tyranny would never resurface. The long table still bore the marks of my earlier victory, coffee stains mingled with the ink of forged signatures. I spoke plainly. Our bylaws exist to protect us, not to wield as weapons. We must rebuild trust, revise our rules, and ensure transparency at every step. Heads nodded, pens poised to rewrite regulations with clearer language and stricter checks on any one person's power. In that moment, I realized justice wasn't just about removing a tyrant, but about constructing safeguards for the future. As summer deepened, my cabin became a gathering place for potlucks and barbecues. Under twinkling lanterns, neighbors who once tiptoed past one another now joked and swapped homemade pies. Children raced paddling pools by the dock while adults relaxed on mismatched chairs, carefree and smiling. I often caught myself gazing at the wooden board, now painted with brighter strokes, its message still as potent. It no longer felt like a trophy of revenge, but as a beacon of community resilience. One afternoon, a letter arrived addressed to the defender of the lake. Inside was a typed apology from Karen herself, sent from an anonymous forwarding address. She claimed to have lost everything: her job, her reputation, even her home in town, and begged for forgiveness. My first impulse was to shred it, to revel in her fall. But something stopped me. I clipped the letter to the notice board in the hall, above the new bylaws draft, and wrote beneath it, "Accountability precedes forgiveness." Let her know that while justice had been served, mercy was neither demanded nor denied lightly. When word of my gesture reached the local paper, they ran a feature on the cabin key crusader, painting me as a hero of small-town justice. Journalists flocked to interview me, eager for juicy quotes about bureaucratic battles and dramatic showdowns. I smiled politely but deflected their questions back to the community. This isn't about one person, it's about all of us standing up for what's right. Their cameras captured my earnest expression against the backdrop of pine trees and rippling water, a tableau of triumph tempered by humility. Despite the public attention, my days settled into a peaceful rhythm. Mornings brought fishing trips with old friends, who now greeted me with hearty slaps on the back. Afternoons were for tending the herb garden behind the cabin, the scent of rosemary and thyme mingling with lake breezes. Evenings were reserved for quiet reflection on the porch, the wooden board softly illuminated by lantern light, its simple words echoing in the hush. Occasionally, I allowed myself a wry smile at how a scratched piece of pine and a stolen set of keys had stirred a movement. As autumn tinged the leaves' russet, the HOA board, now fully restructured, invited residents to vote on a permanent ban against key seizures and unauthorized inspections. The turnout shattered previous records, every ballot a testament to our renewed commitment to fairness. I watched as the final tally confirmed unanimous approval, knowing that Karen's tactics would never again find fertile ground. Celebratory whistles and applause filled the community center, and I felt a swell of pride for everyone who had stood by me in that shadowed hour of injustice. One crisp evening, as the last embers of a bonfire died, I gathered the original wooden board and set it ablaze, sparks dancing up into the starry sky. It crackled and smoked, shedding its old paint until it glowed red before collapsing into ash. From the remnants, I fashioned a small pile at the water's edge, a symbolic gesture of letting go. The lake drank the ashes, carrying them silently into its depths, and I felt the weight of the past settle into peaceful oblivion. With the board gone, the cabin keys returned permanently to my belt. I felt an unburdened clarity. Karen's chapter had closed, but its lessons endured. The importance of speaking truth to power, of banding together in the face of petty cruelty, and of tempering victory with compassion. As I locked the cabin door that night, I placed a fresh, unassuming wooden plaque beside the new key rack. Here we look out for each other. Its unadorned simplicity felt more powerful than any declaration. In the silence that followed, I invited readers to share their thoughts. Had my retaliation crossed a line? Or was it a necessary stand against despotism? I trusted that our collective wisdom would guide future actions, ensuring that the balance between justice and mercy stayed true. And as pine-scented breezes whispered through the darkness, I knew that in protecting my cabin keys, I had unlocked something far greater: the enduring spirit of a community united against injustice.